All right. Well, good evening. How are you today?
Good.
Good? Everybody good? Thank you for coming. I appreciate that. The first thing I need to do, obviously, is introduce myself and the church to you a little bit so that you know who's supporting this school and what it's going to be like and what our emphasis is. My name is Patrick Marks, and I am the senior pastor of this church, 14:6 Christian Church. And invariably, people ask us about the name 14:6. Where did you get it and why did you do that? And of course, that's why we named it 14:6, so that you would ask. That was the whole point. The name comes from John chapter 14, verse 6, where Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one gets to the Father except through me." In fact, the original name of the church was the Way and the Truth Christian Fellowship, but that was a great, big, huge mouthful. And then someone pointed out that there's a cult out there called The Way, so we decided to change it, and we wanted to be contemporary, and, how many grace fellowships are there in this world, So we decided to do something a little different that would kind of create some buzz, so we named it 14:6. Now, denominationally, we are independent, so you've heard the non-denominational label. But what does that really mean? Well, we're evangelical in our approach. Here you go. No worries. Need another one? Okay. Please have a seat right over here. We're going to film me this time and try to put it on the website. So anyway, as I was saying, we're a non-denominational church, but from a theological point of view, we are essentially identical to, say, Calvary Chapel. An Assemblies of God church would be very similar to us. In fact, we have very close relationships with both the local assemblies and with Calvary Chapel. And so you can find our statement of belief is in the packet there in front of you so that you can examine that if you need to. And I'd recommend that. And here you go. And so I'm going to kind of shorten it up and let you know that our primary reason for having a school is that we want to disciple kids. This is a much different mindset than a lot of Christian schools that are out there. There are many Christian schools that tend to be public schools with Christian clothes. They really do. And that's not their fault. It's just that we've all grown up with a certain mindset of what education should be and what it should emphasize. If you go back prior to John Dewey, prior to the turn of the 20th century, education in America had a very different mindset. And we're trying to get back to that kind of a mindset. The mindset back then was that academics are necessary for you to be a good citizen. That's important, but discipleship is by far more important than anything else. And that was the mindset prior to progressive thinking in the early 20th century. So what do we mean by a disciple? There are a lot of young people that grow up in the church. They know the songs, they've been to the Bible studies, they've been on a worship team or whatever, and then the harsh reality of life hits them right between the eyes when they're about 18. The truth is, somewhere between 80 and 87% of kids that grow up in a Christian home, grow up in church, will walk away from the Christian faith between the ages of 18 and 21. That is a statistical fact. And unfortunately, there's not a lot that you can do once they reach adulthood. They're going to go out and make their own choices. We raise them up to go out. They're independent agents, and we have to face that. So what we need to do is we need to teach them a very, very crucial and important truth, and we need to get it in their minds early when they're young. And that is that Christianity is not about having a great life. It's not about we're Christians, therefore everything should go better for us. It's about understanding the fact that we are all sinners. We have offended God, every last one of us, whether you grow up in the church or not. In fact, there are some people that grew up in the church and they've never smoked anything, they've never drank anything, they've never done anything, and their pride is the size of Mount Everest, and they don't realize that that pride is as offensive to God as any prostitute is in their lifestyle. And the truth is, we have to understand we are sinners. We are desperately in need of the grace of God. And without His grace, we are utterly hopeless in our situation, no matter how good we may think we are, or we may put on the trappings of being good on the outside. We have to train kids to understand this. Why? Because we live in a world full of sinners. And what's going to happen to you is you're going to turn 18, you grew up in a nice home and everything went right, you're going to go out and you're going to face college professors that are going to tell you there is no God. You're going to face the harsh reality of people that do not like the Christian worldview, the biblical worldview. And that can be intimidating, and that is the reason. You can have all the apologetics in the world, but why did the disciples, why were they able to stand and allow themselves to be thrown to the lions for their Christian faith? Is because they understood the concept that we are sinners saved by grace, that we've been promised eternal life, not a great life right now. That's never what we were promised. We were promised eternal life if we overcome till the end. And when you train kids to understand from an early age that Christianity is about understanding your position in front of God, and you really get them to get that, then apologetics makes a whole lot more sense. It just makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more practical. So our goal is to help people, help young people, train them in discipleship. And academics is the vehicle that we wish to use to that end. It's not the other way around. Like I said, there are many Christian schools where academics is the focus and discipleship is something we add on to it. Whereas in our view, it's exactly flipped. Discipleship is the view for 14:6 Christian Academy. The academics is what we add to that. It's the vehicle that we use to help you learn what that means. Now, a little bit more about why we as a church, I'm the senior pastor here, why is it that we have this vision in the first place? Well, my story is I was originally trained to be a missionary to France, and that was my plan. And I went overseas with Youth with a Mission on 3 different short-term trips, prepping to go to the mission field. That was my plan. I went to Christian Heritage College in order to do that, and I got my teaching credential while I was there because the idea was to be an English teacher in France, and that's my vehicle, my way into French culture, and a way to start missionary work over there. But my life took a rather sharp left turn, and my plan to go to France didn't materialize the way I wanted it to, and so I ended up becoming a public school teacher. I taught all grades from kindergarten through 12 over a span of more than 20 years, from 1994 all the way up through 2008. I was involved in the public system in various different capacities, either as a substitute teacher, which doesn't count when you try to get a new job on how many years experience you have. So my experience as a teacher didn't count. But anyway, so I've been a substitute teacher, been a teacher's aide, and a regular classroom contracted employee. I was a tenured teacher in California, in the state of Washington, and here in Arizona. So I have a strong background and more than 30 credits post-bachelor's degree in education, in all this training. Now, what it did, though, is it showed me firsthand the darker side of what's happening in our public school system. If you are here today, you are interested in a Christian school or homeschooling for one of 2 reasons. Because you've seen what's happened over there as a parent or as a student yourself, and you want something better for your kids. And that is a really good motivation for wanting to be a part of this. But another reason that you may be wanting to be a part of it is that you may have bought into the idea, and I certainly did for a long time, that the way to reach our culture is to put our kids into that system like missionaries themselves. I honestly believed this because my dad believed it. He was a elementary school teacher for 33 and a half years and wanted me to go to the public system basically as a missionary to my friends and my peers and so on. But having lived that personally, I wasn't mature enough to find, my own shoes. I mean, I really wasn't. And I found that I was more influenced than I was an influencer. And there are too many young people that they're not able to do that. Now, as a public school teacher, I found out that the philosophy of education in the public system today is diametrically opposed to a Christian worldview. It really, truly is. There are a lot of good teachers out there. I don't want to tear them down. Many of my colleagues were wonderful people. Many of them were Christians. Many of them were trying to make a difference. But it's like trying to get a dead horse to come alive by beating it harder. It's dead. The public system is dead. The progressive mindset, which started under John Dewey at the turn of the 20th century, and through the efforts of people like Margaret Sanger and Abraham Maslow and others like that, have completely transformed the public school mindset into anti-biblical worldview. I can attest to that as a parent. I have 5 children. 3 of them went through the public system. 2 of them were now homeschooling. And I can see it as a parent, and I can see it as a teacher. You will find here in your packet our Christian philosophy of education. It is very different than what you will see in the public school system. But we ran into a problem as parents. I'm the senior pastor of a church, but if you look around you, this is not a megachurch. Okay, so I've had to work part-time jobs for a long time. I still own a little tree trimming company that I trim and remove trees 1 or 2 days, a week usually. And we ran into a situation where homeschooling was really becoming a problem for my wife. We discovered something. This is hard to admit, but some people just don't have the gift of teaching. You can love your children, and my wife is right at the top. The guilt of her having to admit, I don't have this gift, until I pointed out, doesn't the Bible say in 1 Corinthians that God gives different gifts and one of them is teaching? Not everybody has that gift. They just don't. So quit putting guilt on yourself that you're not a natural teacher. Some people are just not. But it was really hard on my wife going, well, what do we do with the kids? I don't want to put them back in the public school system. So I've tried to work with her, and it's been a real tough thing. So we looked into Christian schools. But we found them to be stunningly expensive. And how are we supposed to do this? It was more than we could afford. So we ran into a problem. Well, fortunately, there was a solution, and it was right there in front of me. My home church that we came from in California started the hybrid system, which is what we do here. And that's where you teach regular classroom instruction on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We have regular teachers in regular classrooms right here in this building, and we teach the kids. But on Mondays and Fridays, it's homeschool. That way, it's not overwhelming to the homeschool parent because it's 4 days a week for you because you get Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. But the curriculum is designed that you can teach it on Mondays and Fridays and you can keep up. No problem. So the homeschool parent is still involved in homeschool. Whereas we come alongside you to assist those 3 days in the middle. And it creates a model that allows for the best of both worlds. Because you still have the homeschool component, and you as a parent are the primary teacher, and we are alongside you. Now, the public system has a different mentality. Their mentality is they are the professionals and you do what you're told. You teach, we teach and we don't even bother to tell you what we're teaching. For example, in New Hampshire, about a month ago, a parent found out that there was a required reading, a book called 19 Minutes, required reading for an English class. Now, I taught 10th grade English, so I know what it's like to insist. I used to insist that my kids had to read Huckleberry Finn until I was told I could no longer use it because it has the N word in it. Whereas you can teach 19 minutes and not tell the parents what's in it. I have read the excerpts from this book. It is flat out pornography. I mean, it's flat porn. I mean, it would make Hugh Hefner blush. But because it's the human experience today, it's considered acceptable. Well, a parent objected to this at the school board meeting, and you're allowed to speak to the school board for a grand total of 2 minutes about your concerns. And because there was another parent in the school board meeting that was arguing with this parent, he went over his 2 minutes and they promptly had him arrested. So this just happened just a month ago. This is what the kind of thing is going on out there. We want to avoid that kind of thing. Does that make sense? So you as a parent are still the homeschool parent. We are going to ask you to be members of the Home Educators of Surprise because you still homeschool. So we are partnering with Home Educators of Surprise because we don't have a PE program here, for example, but they do. And so we're going to be working together with them. So it supports you, but it also allows us to give your kids some things that you may not be able to give them yourselves. For example, maybe you don't have the gift of teaching, and my wife, 2 days is fine. 3 days, we've got problems. So 2 days she can do, and she's good with this. She's very excited about this. The other thing is that because we're pushing a biblical worldview for your children, what we want to do is we want to really, really work on getting them a global mindset, because Jesus said go into all the world, not just go into Surprise. Go into all the world. Well, how do you do that? Now, when I was over in Europe doing my missionary work there, it was amazing to me to run into these kids that were early teenagers and could speak 4 languages. Well, they had to, because they lived in a place where you would go 40 minutes in any direction and you're a completely different country. You know, in Holland, I mean, literally 40 minutes away you're in Germany, or you go this way and you're you know, almost in France and in Belgium. So cross the channel and you're in England. So I mean, it's like it was very weird to run into a kid who would speak Dutch to me. My Dutch is dreadful, and so I was like, that isn't going to work. And then they would switch into German. I don't speak anything more than Wasser in German. So, and at that time, my French was very poor. So then they switch into English, and I'm going, you're 11, and you can speak 4 languages. Here in America, our mindset is, well, America rules the world, right? Everybody follow. We're the world's superpower. We're wonderful. Everybody should follow us. So we don't bother to learn anything about languages until you're in 9th grade. When's the best time for a kid to learn a language? When they're about that big, right? That's how they learn to speak English. And they didn't go to a classroom for it. They were simply exposed to it, and they picked it up because they're like little sponges when they're this age. So we intend to teach languages from the earliest grades. I will be teaching French, okay? And that man right there, my father-in-law, will be teaching Spanish. He was a missionary to Honduras for how many years? 7 years. In fact, my wife's first language was Spanish. It's really kind of neat because she tells a story about being blonde-haired, brown-eyed, and this tall in the English as a second language classroom. And it was kind of cute. But anyway, so he'll be teaching Spanish, and we have another teacher that will be teaching American Sign Language. So we're going to be working with 3 languages from the earliest grades all the way throughout, and that's our mindset. Now, our curriculum is totally about a biblical worldview. We will be also adding a lot of apologetics. I'm big into apologetics. Dad, could you go grab my books from my office? I totally forgot to bring them. I wanted to show them a sample. They're on my bookshelf, and I don't remember where. I think it's second shelf down. I've written a couple of books on apologetics. One's called Someone's Making a Monkey Out of You, and the other one is called Understanding Evolution and Creation. And I have a new book coming out later this year called Understanding Why the Bible Can Be Trusted. So apologetics is very close to my heart. So we will be teaching your kids why evolution is not true. We will be teaching them why they can trust the Bible. They need to be able to answer these questions. And most of us don't have time to read Josh McDowell's Evidence That Demands a Verdict. It's this deep. So what I've done is repackaged it into language that your average 7th grader can understand and put it into acronyms and things like this in my books. And we're going to be teaching that kind of stuff. Now, I also would like to make clear that we are starting this year. This is brand new. That's a fact. You are getting in on the ground floor if you choose to be a part of this. And some people are a little scared to be on the ground floor of something. What if it doesn't work? What if you guys have to shut the doors? What if this? What if that? You can what if yourself into the grave. And I know there are plenty of people that are going to go, you know what, I'm going to let you do that for a year and then we'll see you next year. And that's fine. I understand that. But I'd like you to know that we are not inventing anything new. Our home church has been doing this for 17 years. Exactly this model. The Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday model, Monday, Friday. They are the ones that are starting us. All we did, everything that you have in your packets there, comes from their school. All we did was change the name from Foothills Christian Church to FourteenSix Christian Church. That's all we did. We are not reinventing the wheel. We are doing something that has 17 years of track record behind it. It's extremely successful. In fact, so successful, their first year, they only had 38 kids in the school. But after that, in the second semester, they doubled. The very next year, they had to start a high school. You brought every evolution creation book I have. I wanted the ones I wrote.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. just the ones I wrote. Big box of books. Anyway, lost my train of thought. Where am I? Okay, so we're not inventing something new. And they have a K through 12 program now. They also have a waiting list that's 2 years long because everybody wants to get into them. And we are doing everything the way they do it with one exception. They're still doing everything old school by hand. We will be completely automated by August. In fact, we're going to help them come into the 21st century in terms of automation. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that everything, you will have a portal of your own so that you can go in at any time and see what your kids' grades are, what the notes are from the teacher, communicate directly with the teacher. Any information we want to give to you, it'll be in your portal, calendar-wise, anything we want to communicate to you. Your enrollment forms, by August, they're not fully automated yet, and we have to test everything. So that's why they're still by hand in your packet right now. But everything will be in there. If you want to update anything, I want to update my kid's health card because I got these immunizations, you can go right in and do it all automatically. Everything will be online in terms of payment options. You can pay online. You can even pay with an app from your phone. So we will have everything automated by August. We're very excited about that because we're going to take all of our automation back to our home church and help them. So they helped us, we helped them. Works really great. Now, they're tried and true, and we're following their policies essentially to the letter. So let's go through a little bit about what we're going to teach, how we're going to teach it. I'm going to try to, my little presentation here hopefully will answer almost every question you have before the question and answer period. First of all, in this first year, we will be using the Alpha Omega Life Pack curriculum. The Alpha and Omega Life Pack curriculum, some of you may use that already in your homeschool program. We did when we were homeschoolers. And the reason we're using that is because it allows us some significant flexibility. We could have used Accelerated Christian Education. We could have used Bob Jones. We looked into all of these different curriculums, but we realized in our first year we needed some flexibility because we're not exactly sure yet what our full interest level is. Are we going to be K through 12 out of the gate? Well, we already know that the answer is no. Okay, but which grades are we going to be offer? Are there some classes that we're going to have to combine, like our 3rd and 4th graders together perhaps? That may happen because we don't know exactly yet what the interest level is. So we knew going into this we had to have some flexibility. Alpha and Omega offers that. Each one of your kids will have their own set of workbooks because they're individualized learning. The teacher's job is to help your kid learn that information, go through the test with them, go through the worksheets with them. If there's a microscope project, we have the microscopes and we help them do that, all that sort of thing. But they have their own books. Everybody has their own workbooks. And they take them home, and you own that curriculum. So that's why we decided to go with the life packs. Now, we will be teaching primarily Bible, history, geography, science, math, language arts. We will also be adding 3 languages. As far as I know, it's Tuesdays is French, and Wednesdays is Spanish, and Thursdays is ASL, but that may change a little bit, but that's going to be added in there. And let's see here. Academically, we're also adding things into the curriculum. We'll be adding some things in because we want to have our standards at the highest level possible. What we did, the highest state standards in the United States are from Massachusetts. Currently, Arizona state standards rank about 38th nationwide in terms of the state standards and, how kids should be educated. Massachusetts is number 1, so we went to number 1, downloaded all of their state standards, and compared it to Life Packs to make sure that your kids are at the top when it comes to what are the standards in terms of education. Let's see. Additionally, our classes will be capped at 24 kids. Each teacher will have at least 1, but preferably 2 teacher's aides. Right now, I've got enough interest that it looks like we're going to have 1 teacher and 2 aides, no problem. Now, what that means is that with 24 kids, you're going to have an 8-to-1 ratio of adults to kids. When I was a public school teacher, that ratio was closer to 30-to-1, kids to adults. Now, that's in a standard classroom, but I also taught music where the state laws don't apply. So I could and did have 200 students against me. And I had to grade every single one of them. And that was in one class because that was just band. Then I had choir and all these other things that I taught as well. So we're not going to have that problem here. We're going to have an 8-to-1 student to adult ratio. Now, if you look for a moment, take a look at the vision statement. This is where we're going. Now, again, the school itself is coming off of 17 years worth of experience. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just doing what Foothills has been doing for a long time. And our vision statement is that we view 14-6 Christian Academy as a K-12 discipleship training academy dedicated to building biblically literate, academically proficient young people with a biblical worldview from which they can build successful lives. Dad, can I have those books real quick? And thank you. Right here. You want one? Okay. Yeah, that's the 2 I'm talking about. These are my books, by the way, if you want to look at those later. Got 2 more coming out later this year. So what this means is our vision is to go K through 12. Now, if you look in this room, in this building itself, this is a 10,500 square foot facility. We can accommodate the school for a while, up to about 60 kids, and then we're going to have to expand. Well, there's 5 acres of dirt over there that it is our vision to buy. And Lord willing, after buying that, we'll put modulars out there, and our vision is to get to the place where the kids are 1 teacher for 1 grade. Now, because we're capping the classes at 24 kids, you may end up in the first year with multiple grades in 1 classroom. So you may have a teacher that's teaching 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And if you ask yourself, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Some people would look at that in a negative light. However, as a homeschool parent, that's what you're doing every day. Unless you have triplets. I mean, you're going to be, your kids are at different grade levels. You do it all the time as a homeschool parent. So we're just doing the same thing that you do. The second thing about it is, and this I think is very, very interesting. Remember, 100 years ago, would you say right now that our public school system is better or worse than 100 years ago? What would you think? Worse. Okay, I mean, try to pass the 8th grade graduation test in Kansas from 1860. I can't pass it. And I have a bachelor's degree. I honestly can't. I don't know the answers because I don't speak Latin or Greek. Okay? You know what I mean? My Greek is, I can read a dictionary, and I'm a pastor. I didn't take Greek. He's the Greek major. And, so I just read the dictionary. So what does that tell us? It tells us that something is different, and yet in those days, they were one-room schoolhouses. So why was that a good thing? Because right now, your 2nd grader only works with 2nd graders. So their maturity level is going to stay at second grade. That's all they're going to see. And when I was a public school teacher, my kids were with me all day except recess, and then did we allow our second graders to play with the eighth graders? Not a chance, because someone might get hurt. So we kept them all separate all the time, which means that their maturity level is constantly being enculturated by their peer group. This is not a very good plan. Whereas 100 years ago, if I'm in second grade, I have to behave because the eighth graders, first of all, they're intimidating to me. I'm looking up to them. Secondly, they're not going to put up with me being immature. So the maturity level went straight up. And it went up quickly. Because in 1843, I was just reading a story just today. In 1843 in Windham, north of Boston, your average kid was going to Yale and Harvard at 14 or 15 because they grew up in a one-room schoolhouse. They mastered enough Latin and Greek to pass the exams to get in there, and they were considered adults at that age. There was no such thing as this transition zone we call adolescence. It didn't exist 150 years ago, not in America. You were expected to grow up, and that one-room schoolhouse allows the kids to look up to the older grades and allows the older grades to step outside of their selfishness and be able to work with younger kids. How many of you know that teenagers can be rather self-centered? If you've got teenagers, if you own one or have been owned by one, as I have, then you know what I'm talking about. And so this is actually an advantage, not a disadvantage. And even when this school gets to a place where we have all the second graders in one room and all the third graders in another, since we're based on a homeschool curriculum, they will be mixing all the time because your kids will get evaluated, and they may be second grade chronologically but reading at a fourth grade level. So when it comes to reading time, they go over and work with the fourth graders. Or their math, they may be in fourth grade and they're catching up, and they may have to go with the aide. Now, we're not going to work down, but we will work up. But that's the future. Does that make sense? I don't want somebody in sixth grade having to sit with the second graders. But I do want second graders to sit with the sixth if they're at that level. Does that make sense? So my goal is to see the advantages of multi-grade interaction and starting right at the beginning. Now, in our first year, because we're using the life packs, we're able to multi-grade fairly easily. But we don't know yet what grades are going to fall out. Right now, the majority of kids I have signed up are third, fourth, and fifth. I have 2 eighth graders interested, but no 7th or 6th. And right now I have 1 kindergartner and 2 in 1st and 2nd grade. The rest are 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So it looks like 3rd, 4th, and 5th is a for sure at this point. So I don't know what grade levels you have yet. I don't know how many of you will be interested. So let me give you an example, a little bit more about who's teaching, what it's going to cost, and so on. First of all, we look for teachers that have the gift of teaching, not necessarily the credentials. Now, there are some that have both, but a lot of times it's the other way around. As a public school teacher, I am here to tell you that I knew many teachers that had the degrees and had the credentials and had no business being in a classroom. They did not have the gift. They didn't love kids. They didn't have the vision for it. They just wanted a paycheck. And I know some of those teachers. But I know some others. Some of my TAs that when I was a high school marching band instructor, I had a staff of like 12. And some of these guys didn't have a college degree, but they're some of the best teachers I've ever met. It's a gift. So we're looking for the gift. Now, right now, our primary teacher is a lady who actually is credentialed in 2 different states. She has 2 bachelor's degrees. She's a full nurse, and she's the ASL teacher. So she's going to be our main teacher at this point. We've only hired 1 because we just started and we're not sure, again, what's our level. If we have enough, we'll hire another teacher and we'll open up another section. We'll talk about that in a moment. Now, myself, I will be acting as the headmaster of the school for the first year. My goal is to move into the superintendent position because as a senior pastor and I own a business and I have 5 kids, I'm busy. So eventually somebody else will be the headmaster of the school, but I'm going to start us out. Headmaster is the same position as a principal would be. The difference is as a headmaster, I'm much more involved in teaching. When you go over to the public school right now, your average principal will darken the door of a teacher's classroom once or twice a year. As a headmaster, you're in there all the time because you're interacting with the kids. There's nothing against them. It's just they have a different way of doing things. Headmaster is going to be a little bit different. I will be teaching the French class, and I'm fully credentialed, and I have a bachelor's degree in the French language and so on. My father-in-law will be teaching Spanish. We also have an art teacher here. She went to San Francisco College of Art and Design or something like that. She's the one that designed this cover. She did this. She did all of this. My new book coming out, she did the cover for that. She's an artist. She's very good at what she does. And she'll be teaching fine art here. Now, what will it cost? You look at the payment schedule inside. Please note that what you're looking at here is about a third of what it would cost to send your kids to a Christian school 5 days a week. I have cousins that went to Xavier Prep over in Paradise Valley, and I'm here to tell you that we would be about 20% of what it costs to go to Xavier. Give you an example. Northwest Christian School, to send your child as an elementary school student, you will pay $586 a month for 11 months, whereas here you're paying $250. Phoenix Christian School, $556 for K through 5. At Joy Christian School over on 67th, you will be paying $610 per student per month for 11 months for elementary. And that's what's going on around here. So we are about a third less at $250. Now, why do we charge you $250 at all? Well, because our church's general fund can't pay all the expenses that we're going to have. We have to pay for teachers. We have to pay for supplies. We have to pay for all the support personnel. The air conditioners in this room, for example, normally we only have our offices AC during the week. Well, now with kids in the whole building, we're going to have to, so all those expenses go up and we have to pay for it. So that's what it costs. Now, there is an enrollment fee. We are asking for a $50 interest fee at this point. You know, you're interested, here's how serious I am, I'll give you $50. That is refundable until July 1st. After July 1st, your registration fees are non-refundable. After July 1st. The reason I say July 1st is because this is the last meeting that we had, a public meeting that we're sending out before July 1st, and we didn't know what we were going to have. So we had to make it refundable. Does that make sense? Well, once we know here's the grade levels and here's the teachers and this is what's going on, we have to make it non-refundable. Now, your $250, and that's cumulative, your $250 total registration fee is due by August 15th. That's so that we can go buy your curriculum. Remember, you will own the curriculum. So it comes back and forth between us. You're the homeschool parent Monday and Friday. So you will get 6 booklets that are Alpha and Omega Life Pack books that have your student's name in it. They belong to you. You bring them back and forth. But you own it. But we're going to go buy it for you because we can get it in bulk. It'll be cheaper for you to buy it through us than it would be for you to buy it directly from them anyway. So that's where that fee goes. We will accept late enrollments if positions are available. So some kids are certainly going to come in all the way up until school starts September 9th, and they're going to want to get in. And if we have room, we'll take them in. However, we're going to discourage mid-semester enrollments. In the public system, I could bring my child in and enroll them 2 days before finals, and I as a teacher have to accept the student and I have to give them a grade. Now, how do I give a grade to a kid who's been in my biology class for 2 days? Pretty tough to do, and it's happened to me several times when I was teaching biology down at Shadow Ridge. And that was hard. We can't do that. So we're going to take kids in all the way up till September 9th, and then we cut off enrollment until second semester. Because bringing kids in midway is just not healthy for them. So we're not going to do that. With your enrollment form, you do have to have a testimony on there about your faith in Jesus Christ. Why? because there are some Christian schools, and again, I'm not denigrating them in any way, but there are some Christian schools that view what they do as an outreach. We're trying to reach kids for Christ through the school. We have a different mindset. Ours is we're teaching kids to be disciples, so they have to have a testimony coming in. This is important. When I was a substitute school teacher in Christian Unified Schools in San Diego, we had more problems with drugs, with people having sex in the bathrooms, and all of those types of things at Christian High than we did at the public system. And the reason is because kids that got thrown out of the public schools, parents would, in desperation, send them to Christian High because they figured the good environment would help. So in other words, Christian High became basically a reform school after a while. We don't want that to happen here. So this is a discipleship program. You need to have a testimony of your Christian faith coming into the school. You will also have once we get down to the enrollment thing, there will be a meeting with me personally, and we'll go through any of these types of stuff. So I think I've covered the majority of things at this time. So what I'd like to do is open it up for your questions, and then I've got a few questions for you too. I want to see what kind of interest you really have. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
I might have missed it, but I heard September 9th, when does it end, and what are the times in the morning?
Okay, we're 8:30 to 3:30, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that's because the school across the street is 8 to 3, so we're going to be offset. They tend to use our parking lot no matter what we say or do, so we just gave up and allowed them to use our parking lot. So they'll be flowing in and out, and then you'll flow right in and out behind them at 8:30, 3:30. September 9th is the first day of school, and the last day is June 15th? I have to look at the calendar, but it's middle of June. Yeah, it is a 180-day schedule, which is what the school districts do 184 days now. We do 180. Now that counts Mondays and Fridays, so your teaching counts in that 180 days. So it's the same, basically the same as what the public system does. Any other questions?
What's your cutoff age for kindergartners?
5 years old by. It was October 1st, or it was November 1st. It was November 1st, I think. I'd have to look in the handbook. Yes.
I might have misunderstood, but for the fee,
Mm-hmm.
that includes the curriculum?
It does. No, it includes the curriculum.
I have a question. You said you wanted to go for state standards. Is that going to include Common Core?
No,
Okay, good.
we are opposed to Common Core.
And then the second question I had was, it's a homeschool school, so you're getting funded by the state at all?
No,
Okay,
no
so
funding.
you're not following the same, it's not going to be, the same rules or whatever that a school.
Not academically.
Okay.
Yeah, academically, now over at the public system, we tested them to death. I mean, we were testing them every 2 weeks because it was all political, and every test in the world drove us crazy as teachers. We will have one test here. We will do the Stanford 9 at later in the year, and that's only for you so that you can see. It's a norm referenced test, so if you've got a first grader, you will see how your first grader ranks against every other first grader in the United States. In what percentage? Where are they? What Foothills has discovered is that consistently, over 17 years, every single one of their kids tests above average from their grade level based on comparison to the public system. We are always ahead, every time. And that's because you got parents help, doing Monday and Friday. You got that individualized instruction. Of course they're going to excel. Yeah. So we only do the one test. Yes, ma'am.
So the curriculum that you receive, is it based on grade? For example, there's a third grade curriculum, a kindergarten curriculum. So how do you differentiate instruction if you have, for example, a third grader who's at a sixth grade level, but the curriculum's set at third grade?
Yeah.
How are they going to reach their potential if they're only doing things at a third grade level?
For this first year, everybody's going to be at their grade level based on their age or based on what the parent tells us. If a parent's already been doing homeschool and said, look, my kid's already at this age. For example, I have a student right now that's 12, but she's doing 10th grade work. Okay, well, the parent's coming in saying, my kid's actually in 10th grade based on this. That's what I need her to do. Well, if we were offering 10th grade, we would put her in that. So it would be based on what you tell us. If you tell me that, yes, my kid is 8, but they're doing 5th grade work and everything, then they're going to get a 5th grade curriculum. But this first year, we can't be as flexible as we'd like to be. The future, we will be switching curriculums, probably in the second year. Our goal is to get to the Bob Jones curriculum. That's what we're aiming for, but right now we're not there. So we'll probably use LifePack and ACE next year as well. So unfortunately, I have to say, you tell me what grade that kid is supposed to be at, and that's where we're going to put them for that year, for the first year. So they will be there. Any other? Yes, sir.
And the grades are accredited.
Accredited? No. This is important to understand. Prior to 8th grade in Arizona, nobody's accredited. They're not, because nothing counts until you get to high school. In terms of scholarships or anything like that, it doesn't count.
Talk about the mother school.
Oh.
Because you said it goes from kindergarten to 12.
Uh-huh.
You are right. So 9 to 12, are they accredited at that school?
Yes, they are. Yeah, and we will be too once we open high school.
Right.
But at this point, prior to 8th grade, we're not. See, and part of the problem with that is that we want to avoid, when you were asking about state intervention, the whole purpose of having a private school is we don't want that.
Right.
So there is an accreditation we can get for high school that does not require the intervention of, see, if we don't accept state funding, we only have to make sure we teach a certain amount, certain specific core things have to be taught, and we can get the accreditation for high school. But if we don't accept state funds, they can't tell us how to teach, what to teach, or anything like that. So now, there is one caveat here. We are a 501c3, so we are working right now. We haven't got it set up yet, but we should by August. The Arizona State tax credit can be applied to us, because if you decide you want your state taxes to go to our school for her students' tuition, you can designate that on your Arizona tax form.
That was my next question.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, but we've got to get set up with them. And the beauty of that is we don't have to, we can accept those funds. They're not considered state funds. They're considered your funds.
Right.
So I don't have to deal with the state telling me how to do things. So you were going to, I caught you on that one. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm not, I was trying to write it down. So how many classes and what are they again?
Well, at this point, we have enough kids signed up to do 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade for sure. The grades on the bookends of that, we have not got enough interest yet to open up those sections. We'll see what we have after this evening.
Like what subjects again?
Oh, what subjects? Let me read it to you. Bible, history, geography, science, math, language arts, art. Yeah, well, actually, I'm probably going to be adding general music as well, but we're still debating that one. Are we going to be able to fit it in terms of time? We'd like to. I was a music teacher for a long time, so it's on my heart. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to have anybody here on staff that is able to deal with special needs children like Asperger's, high functioning autism, or anything like that?
Unfortunately, no. We can't take special ed students that cannot be mainstreamed. If they are able to be mainstreamed without a major accommodation, we can take them. But if they require a special ed teacher, we don't have that. If they require, now we can take handicapped students. Obviously, we're ADA compliant here. That's not a problem. It's not that we have anything against them. We're just not. We're not equipped for that. However, I have worked with students that are high functioning autistic, and they don't need any extra help. The teacher just needs to know, put that child over here, so they're not in the front and they get upset or something like that. We can deal with that kind of a thing. I have one child already that has been identified as ADHD through the roof. However, as long as you keep her moving, she's fine. And since we know her from Sunday school, we know that if you give her a job and keep her moving, she does great. So we don't have a problem with it. We can work with, does that make sense? But we can't do, I had a student when I was a teacher, his name was Josh, and he's very, very low functioning. And extremely difficult. Had to have 2 aides with him wherever he went. We can't do something like that. Yeah, we couldn't do that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Actually, I have two. First one is my work allows us to bring my family if I go on a trip to Florida or something. They pay their way and everything. As far as days off go, like let's say we need a couple weeks where she's going to homeschool the whole time. Is that a possibility?
Yes, it is. In fact, you're going to find more flexibility with us than you would in the public system. In fact, if you looked in the newspaper this morning, there are states that are now passing laws that say that if your student is absent more than 10 days, they have to repeat the entire grade. And the reason for that is not because of education. It has everything to do with money. It's all funding. Our whole world was average daily attendance. ADA was everything. We did attendance in every hour because we had to prove to the state the kid was there so that we could get money. Well, we don't get money from the state for your ADA. The bottom line is if you tell me we're going on vacation for 2 weeks, well, here's the stuff your child needs to cover. You're the homeschool parent. You want to take them on a field trip to Europe. Can I go? But you know, go knock yourself out. Yeah, no problem.
And the other thing, you've got a student who'd be a second grade. So where your book at? So
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I may end up myself personally having one child in this school and one child I may have to put in the public system because we don't have an open slot. I may have to deal with something similar, or ask Melissa to do 5 days a week for one child and only 2 for the other. I don't know. Part of what we're doing here is an investment. You're helping us get started. And all I ask is that if you've caught this vision and you believe in what we're doing, sign up for it and let's see what grades we have. What do we have? And we'll see what we can open up. If I have enough 8th graders, I would love to have middle school, junior high. I love those guys. Those kids are great. I taught them for years. And, most of them. There's a few 7th graders, but most of them are good.
How many do you need to open the class?
Well, it depends. If I can combine grades, I can have as few as 10 in 2 different grades, and I'm okay. As long as I can afford the teacher, that's the bottom line. When we add up the dollars, can I afford a teacher for that group? It really just depends on how many I have signed up. I do not want my teachers to have to deal with more than 3 grades at a time. So I'm trying to not, I'm really trying to keep my teachers at 2 grades. So for this first year. So 5th and 6th, 4th and 5th. And we want to do that because when you stretch it to 3, you can barely get away with it. But think about first, second, and third. Your first graders aren't reading yet, and your third graders are. So that's like a nightmare. Whereas, 5, 6, and 7 you could do, or 6, 7, and 8 you can do. It just depends on what the sign-ups are. So how is it going to fall out? I'll be phoning you if you sign up on your enrollment form this evening, for example. Say, here's my kid. I am interested. I don't have $50 tonight, but here's my form. I'll take it. Trust me. I'll phone you later once I add up, who's where. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What is your cutoff date?
For when I'll know, our go, no-go date is July 1. So at that point, we will be locking it in. Here's our classes. Here's our grades. This is it. Now, that's really kind of not fair because we have a huge VBS coming up. It's huge. You've seen all the dinosaur footprints out there. We're gearing up for that. And we're going to do another presentation like this one on July 11th. At the end of that VBS, we may be adding more students. So I may have to be a little flexible on that in order to accommodate this first year. Next year, it'll be different because we'll be pushing this real hard, and in the spring, we'll set things up. Yes, ma'am?
Recess.
We will have recess and lunch, but we do not, beg your pardon?
How frequently will there be recess, and how long will each session be?
At this point in time, we're talking about 1 30-minute. But we may split it into 2 20 minutes. We're still debating the actual time because it's all, right now we're trying to figure out how to accommodate our language teachers into the school day. If you go outside here on your way out, you will see we have a full playground all set up. We're ready to go with that. We believe, particularly with boys, that they need to be moving a lot more.
All kids need to be moving.
Yeah, it's killing me what I see in the public system. Sit down, be quiet.
More active.
They learn by playing a lot too. And so we keep them moving a lot. So at this point, we're planning on doing that. Now, in terms of lunch, we do not offer lunches here. You have to send lunch with it has to brown bag it. There's a reason for that. We want to avoid the state getting in on our business. If we feed the kids here, then all of a sudden we have to comply with all of their rules for everything. In terms of nutrition and all this stuff, we would have to spend almost $15,000 to upgrade our kitchen just because they need a grease trap. So we can't offer food at this time. So, but we will keep your kids moving, that's for sure. Any other questions?
Is it $50 per kid or per family?
It's per family. That's just an interest fee. I mean, it's really an interest fee, and we'll apply it to your $250. Now, the $250 is per kid because we give you a curriculum. So, and I know that can get pricey. Look at your price sheet there for a second. Also, would like you to notice that you have multi-student discounts. You'll see there. So, if you have more than one child that's coming to the school, you will have that discount. If you apply for an aide position and we accept you as one, you will notice that if you decide you want to do one full day once per week, well, there's the discount. If you want to be an aide, I'm going to be here 3 days a week in that classroom with that teacher full time, well, that's a significant discount. However, not everybody can be an aide. I can only take so many. And like any other, I have to do an interview. I have to do a full FBI background check on a person who wants to be an aide. I have to do all of that stuff. So not everybody can be an aide, and it is first come, first. And I've already got a flood of people wanting to be aides. So I can't guarantee that, but it's available. And if, the future is open, at this point. I may have to hire another teacher. It just depends on the interest level. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I might have missed it again, too. Teachers, how qualified are they for their position?
Well, I did mention this. We are looking for people who have the gift of teaching. That's more important to us than the credentials they have on the wall. However, the one teacher that we have already hired is fully credentialed in this state. And in fact, she has a degree in education. And so do I. So the two main teachers that you have right now are fully credentialed. Now, my father-in-law is not credentialed in the state of Arizona as a teacher. However, he has a bachelor's degree and he's well qualified as a teacher. So we're looking for the gift more than anything. Did you have a question? Somebody else over here?
Yeah. What are the times?
I beg your pardon?
The times for classes.
8:30 to 3:30.
Oh.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Any other questions? Boy, wasn't expecting some of those questions. Those are good questions, though. So I think I'll close it up just by saying that I appreciate you coming. Thank you for being here. I realize that you have to consider, boy, this is a risk. And I realize that. I recognize that you have to consider, you don't know me. I think I look around here, I see 1, 2, 3 people that I recognize from church. So what does that mean? You're taking a risk. You are, and I realize that. What I can tell you is I can give you the websites to our home church so you can see how Foothills does their schools, so you can see what we're doing. If you're concerned about the church and what we teach, if you go to our main website, you will find my sermons. We film it here, and you can go back for the last 2 years and see what I've been preaching, so you know. And I know it's a risk, but I also know that nothing worthwhile comes without a risk. Nothing does. Try getting married. It's a little bit of a risk. You know what I mean? So, having kids, big risk. I got 5 of them. I just married off my oldest one last Friday. Can you believe that? I'm not old enough to have 2 children now married. 2. No grandkids yet. Praise the Lord. So, anyway. Oh, any others? Yes.
How many months?
It is it's 180 days. It's a 10-month program. Yeah. But you pay 11. Okay, you do pay 11 months. However, if you look at this sheet, you can do it in 10. And there is a discount if you want to pay it all off up front. So you could do that too. Those options are available. Anything else? Well, feel free to come up and talk to me personally if there were some things you wanted to talk about or ask that you didn't want to ask in front of a whole bunch of people, and that would make sense to me. And thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Have a good evening. If you would like, I'm sorry, two other things. There is a VBS, and my father-in-law is the children's pastor here. He'll be happy to give you a VBS flyer on your way out. And secondly, if you are interested, please fill out the enrollment form and give it to me. You do not have to give me the $50 right now. But I really would like to have your enrollment form so that I can phone you. But the $50 does lock you in, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? But at this point, the competition is in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So it depends on where your kids fall. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.